There's a lot of really good, amazing energy around the new year, right? People are setting resolutions and they're thinking about the past and thinking about how they want things to be different, how they can really make the kind of changes that they want to make to improve their life. Now, I posted a quote the other day and a lot of you really liked it, which I appreciate and I totally get. It's like so many of us make these resolutions to change ourselves. And what if we made a resolution this year to be ourselves? And it's a subtle difference, but I really like it. I like the challenge of thinking about things in a new and different way so that we can continue to improve. And it really brought me to this idea of our mental and emotional state, because it's an emotional thing to think about the new year, to think about the things that we did and the things that we want to do, and how, like, what are the layers of the onion that we can uncover so that we can, release and actually be more of who we actually are, like right underneath the fear and the anguish and, that healthy, thin person inside that is vibrant and alive and is oftentimes held back by stuff. And emotional eating is a way that we cope with things, but it can also work to our benefit. So the emotions that are around the new year and wanting to focus on our health and, I'm going to eat better and drink more water and exercise more. And like all of these things that, like, there's a lot of energy around that. That's a very emotional thing. And what happens is that eventually time passes and that emotion that really brought us to a point of making some kind of resolution or wanting things to be different, it fades, right? And that's the real marker of someone who has mastered something or is mastering something, is that long-term stick-to-itiveness beyond when the emotion fades, when the feeling fades, when you're no longer like in that, thrill in love with someone. Like, do you continue to stick with the relationship even through the ups and the downs? And when it comes to our own self and our relationship with body and food, it's very important. So I want to help you identify what I have been thinking about the last couple of days of, like, where the missing pieces are and how to actually navigate and utilize the fact of being an emotional eater. If you are one, this is going to be really helpful for you. So I would actually suggest that you grab a pen and paper and take a couple of notes, because the way that I see it, there's really three things going on here. And we can kind of think of it like a triangle. We've got our physical self that definitely needs to be addressed. And that's usually the one that people focus on the most in terms of, like, I'm going to change something. I want to see it on the outside. I want to see it. I want other people to see it. I want to know that it's happening out there. There's a physical representation. Like, I am stronger. I can lift more. I can run more. I can walk more. I, am eating the right, like I'm weighing less, or for some of it's more, but for most of us, it's weighing less. So we have exercise, and then we have food. Right. And those are the changes that we can make, typically, that we can actually see in our physical body. And those things are important, totally important, but it's really only one side of the triangle. And this is where a lot of us end up kind of going around in circles. We don't really have the stability that is necessary for the long-term results. And a lot of the focus is just on this physical stuff. Oh, it's like, when I get to that weight, or I get to that size, or I get to that strength, or I get to that, whatever it is, this outside physical representation, then I'll be able to somehow everything else will be different because I just took care of that one side. It is a fantasy. Now, it's not that is not accurate sometimes, that if you found yourself back in that loop, there's a couple other things that you really need to consider to get off of that merry-go-round, that roller coaster, and really give yourself some stability. So the other side here is going to be the emotions. So we have our emotions. So the emotional, and then the eating, the food part, right? The physical. And our emotions are, we can sense them, right? Like, a lot of times, some people feel them in their head. Some people feel them kind of like in their chest, somewhere in their body. It's sensations. There's sometimes texture and density and color sometimes, like feelings and emotions, this is energy in motion, can really get us, because quite frankly, the things that we do for our physical, it affects the emotions, and the emotions affect the physical. When we are very emotional, and there's a buildup that's happening with our emotions, and we're kind of shoving them aside as the days go by, because it's just a little bit here, a little bit there. Oh, that, someone, upset you over here, disappointed you, frustrated you, offended you. There's all these just life stuff going on, and it's not really that big of a deal to deal with it at the time, but it's like little bit, 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 little bit. And all of a sudden now it's like, there's only so much energetic space in this body and in this mind. And then we need to reboot. Now, there's lots of different ways to manage this. There's lots of different ways to reboot. But if you are an emotional eater, you have trained yourself, you have learned and then practiced what it is to reset your emotional barometer with food. And so it makes it like really easy to just boom, to go back to that, because it freaking works. Like, we're not crazy. We're not broken. There's nothing wrong with us necessarily. We just have a certain method that what that does then is it's fine if then we don't gain the weight, right? So that there isn't that like a physical consequence that is going to then motivate us to get back into the space where we're willing to do something different with our body and our food. So you can see how this, like, it sometimes works, but it can kind of like end up in this crazy roller coaster. And then a lot of times what happens is that you end up with, even if you are able to manage the weight so that you can't see it on the outside, and there's lots of different ways to do that, you end up kind of crazy. It feels like you're kind of crazy, right? Because it's like constantly thinking about yourself and your body and your weight and what you're going to do and how you need to cleanse and how you need to diet. And tomorrow it's going to be different. And it's just this like rigmarole, and it's freaking exhausting. Like, I remember one time I was walking on the street and it dawned on me. It was one of those like spiritual awakening moments where I just was totally obsessed with, what was the next diet that I was going to do, who's doing what, how I felt, how uncomfortable I was in my body, this inch here and that roll there, and just all this stuff. And I flashed, I'm like, wow, I spend so much time and energy thinking about my own butt. Like, what would I do if I didn't have to think about that anymore? Like, if that just was a non-issue, like, do people live their life as that being a non-issue? I couldn't even imagine it. But like, even just the thought of that being possible, like, opened up doorways of possibility and opportunity to me to find a way to like ask people if that's an experience of life that they have. And a lot of people do struggle, but a lot of people don't. Like, it's just a non-issue. They just take care of themselves, right? They take care of their emotions and they take care of their physical body. Like, they just do little things each day so that the buildup doesn't happen where it's like, it's so built up, you need a release. It's like, no, just take care of things as you go. I mean, it's kind of like, waiting until you're hungry to figure out what you're going to eat. That's not a good time to do it, right? Or waiting until you've like totally had a big blow up with your lover to like talk about the relationship. Like, you want to be able to do those little things along the way so you don't have that big explosion. Okay, so that's dealing with emotions. Now, obviously, having some kind of plan and being intentional with our food, and realizing that all human beings have to be intentional with their food. Like, it especially if you live in the United States and you have any concern about your health, like, it's probably a good idea to not just go along with whatever everyone else is doing, because you're going to end up not feeling very great. That's just kind of the food society that we live in. So being intentional with our physical body and our food, getting some support for our emotions, release and outlet, whether it's a group or it's a therapist or it's a health coach or something like that, where we have some support outside of our family, because it's a little bit too enmeshed. Like, the emotions are a little bit too enmeshed, and there isn't really clear guidance on how to navigate that. There is one other thing though. And so even if we have both of these, it's really important to understand and realize what the foundation is and how a lot of us miss this foundation. And this is one of the things that was the game changer for me, and really solidified all the other things that I was doing. Now, it's not just one of these, right? But down here is going to be our mental life, our mental world, meaning my thoughts, the way that I think, because the way that I think is going to be interpreted by my body as emotions. So it goes from the thinking and the thoughts into the physical body as the emotions. And then once that builds up enough, then the release comes from the food. Now, a lot of times what we do is we just positive affirmation ourselves, right? Where it's like, well, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it. And I love myself and everything's good. And if you're thinking, like the surface thinking is incongruent with the underlying belief system. So it's like the thoughts that you've had about yourself, your place in the world, what your value and your self-worth is, what it means to be a good mom or a good woman or a good wife or a good person, that who you are in relationship to other people, if that foundation is such that it is incongruent with the positive affirmations that you keep just telling yourself, trying to get your mental brain on board, that incongruency causes stress and chaos inside of our mental world and our mental life. And we always just feel not quite right. And we end up back in this cycle of this thinking being incongruent with the belief system underneath, causing all kinds of erratic emotions where we have this like angel and devil, and it just feels like we're being pulled in all different ways. And like one, we wake up in the morning determined to be good all day long, and then it's like, screw it, who really cares? It doesn't matter. We'll start tomorrow, this little bit, like whatever that is. And then we're like, no, we really got to do it. And who really cares? And sometimes that can go on several times during the day. Sometimes it's like, every morning, and then every evening. Sometimes it's like, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, who cares? Everyone kind of has a little bit of a different cycle, but if this is familiar to you, however long or short your cycle is, there is a way off of that. And what I've found is the way off of it is not necessarily the perfect diet. Right? Because we've all done a million diets, right? There's a million ways to lose weight and get your physical body in physical shape, right? And it's not just the emotions. You need all three of these, really, is what it is. So if you're just doing a diet and you're not getting the support emotionally for all the feelings that come up and like what to do and navigate those emotions, then you're really not giving yourself a fair chance. And then if you're doing all of this stuff, which is kind of surface stuff, I mean, it's important and totally necessary, but you're not addressing the underlying belief systems and your thinking that then is what is the foundation to the emotions and then ends up in the action that you take in your life, then you'll always end up back in that cycle over and over again. And next year we'll be having this exact same conversation. So if you are ready to make a different choice and really give yourself this trifecta of support so that you can really shine your fullest without this kind of negativity bringing you down. And it's not necessarily a simple, not easy, or it's easy, not simple. I'm like, sometimes words kind of, elude me, because it's kind of like when someone says, well, just let go. And it just seems like absolutely impossible. Like you're just holding on so tight to whatever the issue is. And then you let go and you're like, oh my God, why didn't I do that earlier? But it's when, it's like, oh, that was so simple. It was so easy, but it was so hard, but it wasn't. Like once you did it, it was like, oh, like, hallelujah. Like I should have done it earlier. It's kind of like that, right? Where it's so simple and so easy that we like to complicate it. We like to complicate it so deeply. And really it's just realizing that our mental attitude and our belief structure and our belief system are just thoughts that are not us, that we thought over and over and over and over and over again. And our brain naturally looks out into the world to find things that are going to support whatever that belief is. And then it solidifies the belief, but beliefs are just thoughts that we thought over and over. So as we begin to change our thinking and like updating our operating system inside of our mind and inside of our brain, then all of a sudden we are able to access other resources that are available to us. And it does become so much more simple and so much more easy when we're not fighting against our own self. So I love you so much. One of the tools that I use for this mental clearing is hypnosis, hypnotherapy, guided meditation, visualization, talk therapy. All of these things are really quite profound in helping and supporting, while you also then have the emotional support from others who understand, and then also being intentional with your food and your body movements. These three things are really what is necessary from my humble opinion, of course. Okay, ladies, I just adore you and love you so much. You should all have a free hypnosis session in your email from me. Now, obviously, it's just a little sample one. I have an entire 12-week program, and I would love to support you and really explaining and diving deeper into what these are and actually giving you the guidance and support and strategies to move forward so that you can get off that little rat race dieting cycle nightmare. All right. Wishing you such a beautiful new year. Happy New Year. Happy New Year 2023. I love you so much. Leave me a comment. Let me know that you are watching, that you are interested, that you are ready, or if you have some questions and you want to know more. It's like, okay, well, it sort of makes sense, but what about this, this, and this? Let me know. Ask the question. I'm here to help. I love you so much. All right. Talk to you soon.